Yeah, yeah, yeah. So many lies that you hear from the net, they don't get her respect. She reporting the truth, not a check. You want an unbiased opinion straight from the chest, not a bit of accomplice or someone here for a check. Tune in, these are thoughts from a lawyer on a mission who goes so hard it's like she works on commission. Trolls in the comments might say she tripping cause they lack the knowledge. They don't know they missing. Got a couple current events that you like. Wanna know about law from the eyes. Tired of all these blogs running lies because their agendas are disguised. Tune in to the intellect, cause I'm sure y'all missing all the facts of the case that she steady is gifting. Someone here for the people, man, it's so uplifting. If you ain't subscribed yet, then you just omitting facts.
Hey everyone, and happy Sunday. It is Pam Esquire, also known as Your Law Intellect. Welcome. I hope you guys are having a great day. If you will be so kind as to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. I was a little bit tardy because I wasn't going to go on camera. I was like, let me just throw my hair in this little ponytail and get on here so I can talk to you all, even though it's not face to face, but you know what I'm saying. We are here to talk about the reply to the government's response to Diddy's request for bail. And in that response, Gina, who was the girlfriend that was brought up during the trial, who did not testify, and who was named as victim number 3, people were saying, like, where is she? Is she okay? What's going on with Gina? And then I started posting a few times in my membership. I said, y'all, Gina is okay. Gina is over there living her best life, taking pictures, talking about, folks is always looking at her and all. And she was right, because I was all up in her stories trying to see where she was at. And Gina just said she not testifying, apparently. So that must be, the government must have declined to put her on the stand, I would assume, because she wasn't going to give any testimony that was going to help the situation at hand. And so now Gina, remember it was one point where I said, well, Diddy's learning who his friends are, and we know that Gina is one of them. Well, Gina has submitted a letter to the court, which is attached to the reply from Diddy's team requesting bail, standing 10 toes down that he is not a danger to society or the community, and that she thinks he should get out. And we're going to go over that. And I have Glamour W1's post still, or comments still up here, because she said, kept checking for Pam to weigh in on this here craziness. This girl did a whole interview with Tasha K and now let him go. Wow. So she did do an interview with Tasha K where and this was before Diddy went to jail or was arrested. And she talked about her experience when she was with him. I think what she is saying, and we'll read it and you guys can take it for what it is we all know that, similar to what Carisha or Young Miami, and people don't want to believe what they say, but this may be their experience and you don't want anybody checking your experience. But she says she met him in the love era. So she didn't necessarily experience what other people had experienced. It was a business situation for her. He treated her well. She treated him well. They liked each other. They liked hanging out and spending time together. And they were good for each other's brand. And so what Gina is essentially, seems to me, is saying, after glancing at it, is that he is not the same person that he was. They had a volatile relationship, but things have changed. Now, I get it. People don't want to believe that people change. They just want to believe they can change. They just want to believe that when they were up there stealing that bubble gum when they was 10 years old and beating up people and being bullies, that they're the only ones out here that can change. I understand. I know people are going to say she had to get paid off and all of that. But it may be her experience. She has not been with him in a minute. And maybe there was some change, and maybe she was volatile as well. Who knows what's what? But what we do know is that Jane said that there was no domestic violence in their relationship until right before, when she decided that it was a good idea to take his big head and smash it into a very, very hard table. So this is her experience, and I understand it's going to be a lot of commentary. Gina got paid $20 million or something, but this can be her experience. So we also have to take that into account as well. Now, again, you can still keep your opinion, but I'm just saying we got to get out of the habit of that we are the only ones that can change the way that we do things. That's all I'm saying. Because some of y'all wish and hope and pray we don't find out about how y'all used to be. Okay? You don't want us to know when you was starting and trotting on the weekend before you found God. That's all I'm saying. You don't want to know. You don't want us to know about all of the fights you got into. All right? So just keep that in mind when we start observing other people, that the same grace we have, we want to give to other people. That's all I'm saying. That's all. Victorville said people can change, but when you've had 30 years to be in the same and have to be forced to get sober, not voluntarily, it's not always a recipe for success. It's me, said True. She probably shouldn't have given conflicting statements to the government as a victim. What statements did she give, though? You know her statements? Hmm? Just saying. So anyway, this is what she's saying. This is what she's saying. I wasn't there. I don't know Diddy. I don't know Gina. All y'all might be right, and all y'all I might be wrong. I'm just saying, generally speaking, we always look at, my job is to make you see both sides instead of see it out of one lens, which is usually our own experiences. That's all. That's all. Mm-mm. Yes, Amani thought and tried. No, everybody always was doing things right. You know what I'm saying? Tracy said, I'm not saying Jane said she was trying to knock some sense into him, but the table might have been her start. Jane said she was like, right? Took the head and just smashed it into the table. I said, Lord have mercy. Okay, let's go. So let's see what Gina has to say. She does not want to be Jane. She does not want to be victim number 3. She said she put her whole name, her whole government name at the bottom of this here letter. And this is Exhibit A. She said, Dear Giana, my name is Virginia. Is it Hugh? I don't know how to say her last name. Hun? I don't know. And I am writing as the person identified as victim number 3 in this case. I have known Sean Combs for many years in both a personal and professional capacity. From that experience, I have seen him primarily as a father, a family man, and a businessman, roles that he has always striven to uphold. I provide this letter to share my observation about his character and to respectfully request that the court permit his release on bond while the case proceeds. I acknowledge and respect that Mr. Combs stands accused and that the court must weigh public safety and the integrity of the legal process. At the same time, I believe it is important for the court to have a full picture of who he is beyond the allegations. Our relationship, like many, was not always perfect. We experienced ups and downs, and mistakes were made, but he was willing to acknowledge his mistakes and make better decisions in the future. Over the years that followed, he made visible efforts to become a better person and to address the harm he had caused. By the time our relationship ended, he embodied an energy of love, patience, and gentleness that was markedly different from his past behavior. To my knowledge, he has not been violent for many years, and he has been committed to being a father first. I am writing because I do not view Mr. Combs as a danger to me or the community. This is his first criminal case. Throughout the investigation and proceedings, he has been cooperative, respectful, and compliant. He has substantial ties to his family and community, including children who depend on him for emotional and financial support. Granting him bond would allow him to continue caring for his family and fulfilling his responsibilities while still subject to the court's supervision. I want to assure the court that if released, I believe Mr. Combs will adhere to all conditions imposed and will not jeopardize his freedom or the well-being of his family. Allowing him to be at home will also support the healing process for all involved. I respectfully ask that you consider these factors when deciding his eligibility for release. Thank you for your time and consideration. Respectfully, Virginia. Okay, so that is what she has to say about her ex-boo, Sean Combs. So she is acknowledging she's not with him anymore. So she may not have the most up-to-date data. But towards the end, she knows he was changing and he was changing for the better. And she does not believe that he is a danger to the community. That's that. Andrew said, now how you know all this? She can only know what she knows for herself. I agree with that, Andrew. She speculated. That's why she said, to my knowledge, there's no violence. But of course, they're going to say 2024, there was a situation with Jane. And then there was that little redacted portion of which the government alleges there were incidents of which were not admissible in court. And the judge asked that the government say why they redacted it, because the court didn't understand why that portion was redacted. So I don't know if that portion has some more information in it of which the court kind of wants everybody to see. I don't know. But according to Gina, this is her experience. That's why I said that in the beginning. This is this lady's experience. She's saying, yeah, at one point he was throwing apples at me when we were together. He was throwing apples at me like that personal assistant said. But, you know, towards the end, he got better and he's not an apple thrower. I mean, that's what she said. I know Cassie and Jane Doe are hot right now hearing about the letter. Well, Cassie probably is, because remember, Gina was a thorn in her side through the whole relationship. So all while they were together, Gina was the one that he actually did take out in public, I guess. And remember, Cassie got mad at some of the people that were around that she thought were her friends, who didn't let her know that he was out there parading Gina around. So Gina actually got to be seen in the public. People kind of seen her here and there. Now, Jane Doe, on the other hand, he kept her on lock and key in the house. Okay, he didn't know nobody. You're my little secret, and that's how we should keep it. That's how Jane was. It wasn't no private relationship. It was a secret. Okay. Cassie, on the other hand, obviously had an open relationship, and apparently Gina was on his arm a couple of times, and she was pissed off. See, that's that whole situation, I believe, when she was over there with Michael B. Jordan and her homeboy was trying to hook her up, and part of that was because she was pissed off over him being seen with Gina. We know way too much about their business now, but you know. You said he was with Young Miami. He was with, okay, so Young Miami was the most recent. Like she was there with the hey pappy sign, you know. That was like earlier in the year when he got the BET Lifetime Achievement Award or something. And he was thanking everybody. And he was like, I want to thank Cassie for holding me down in the darkest times. That was in 2024. That's probably what triggered a lot of stuff too. But hey, I'm just out here speculating like all of y'all. I don't know any of these people. And so later on that year, I think is when she filed. I think it was January of 2023 or 2024 where he got that award. I don't know, but that's around when he was messing with Young Miami. He was messing with Young Miami. Yeah. So Young Miami was the thorn in Jane Doe's side because she wanted to go on trips. She wanted to be on next to him. She wanted to go to the Met Gala. He was like, shh, shh, shh. Just wait till I get home. Don't say nothing else. Don't peep out the window. Don't open up them blinds. I'll be home to come, hang with you. But I gotta hang with you with the blinds closed and the lights off. That's kind of how he did Jane Doe. You know what I'm saying? But with Miami, they was out, it was good for the brand. And that's what he told her too, I guess, that it was business maneuvers as well. But I think he really started liking her and she started liking him. But yeah, they secret lovers. That's what we are. Purple Yellow said Jane Doe and Young Miami were at the same time. Yes. Yeah. It's hard to keep up with all these people's business that don't have nothing to do with us. All up in this man's business that ain't got nothing to do with a Rico. Hey, Bam, girl, good to see you. All right, so this is the letter from Gina. We'll probably get back to it later on. But the government, Diddy's team did respond. Hold on. Let me remove this. Diddy's team did respond to the government's, what they had to say. And they basically said, y'all whole response sucks, No, that's not what they said. Let's pull up what they said. Let me see where it's at. Where do I have it at? Did I even pull this up? Hold on one second, y'all. I was all nosy in Gina stuff. I might have forgot to pull this joint up. User. Hit the like button on the way in, y'all. I'm clicking every button but the right button. You guys bear with me. Here we go. Okay. Sean Combs, through his counsel, submits this brief letter in reply to the government's response to his motion for release on conditions pending sentencing. Impervious to the jury's verdict, the government proceeds as though Combs was not acquitted of sex trafficking and racketeering conspiracy, along with all the racketeering acts with which he was charged and found not guilty. Hell-bent on punishing him for being a user of prostitution services in a more draconian manner than anyone in U.S. history, the government continues to target him unfairly, just as it has done from the inception of this provably misplaced investigation. Despite the jury's verdict, it continues to make factual statements that are plainly at odds with what 12 New Yorkers found, and to try to keep Combs incarcerated, even though the jury rejected the serious charges that led to her pretrial detention in the first place. Specifically, the government argues that Combs, 1, has failed to meet the standard for reconsideration, 2, does not show exceptional circumstances, and 3, cannot reasonably show Combs' appearance in court or the safety of the community. For the reasons stated below, the government's arguments all fail. They fail. That's what Diddy's team is saying. Point 1, the court has ample authority to grant bail. Remember, the government was saying they didn't do it in the right standard. They should have filed a motion for reconsideration that should have been filed within 14 days. That's the government argument, right? So then, in response to that, Diddy's team says that they first argue that the bail application should be considered as a motion for reconsideration by the court. However, as the government acknowledges in a footnote, the Bail Reform Act is, quote, silent on when or if a district judge may consider his or her own detention order pending sentence, end quote. The government also concedes, as it must, that the court, quote, can reconsider its discussion under the, quote, inherent power to consider his own ruling. But all the cases cited by the government discuss bail pending appeal. And pursuant to 18 U.S.C. Section 3141 sub B, this court may order that pending imposition or execution of sentence or pending appeal of conviction or sentence, a person be released. Thus, the court may revisit its bail determination at any time. This makes sense, as courts routinely modify conditions of bail pending sentencing to allow for travel or many other circumstances, and the high standard of reconsideration is not considered. Accordingly, this court may consider this application without treating it as a motion for reconsideration. This is specifically true given the exigencies of July 2nd, 2025, where the jury reached a verdict in the morning and the parties were arguing bail several hours later the same day. Unlike a more traditional setting for motions where parties typically have days, if not weeks, to consider the facts, the law, and the arguments, the events of July 2nd were fast forward, and it was impossible for the parties to review the scores of Mann Act cases to fashion the appropriate argument in the court. For these reasons, we submit that the court has ample discretion. So they're saying he was acquitted quickly, and then they immediately was like, we want to request a motion for bail. They did not have any of their arguments, didn't have case law to support their arguments. They didn't have time for that. They had a short period of time, try to come up with what they could. They didn't have time to go circle the whole United States of America in their federal rulings to see the Mann Act and how they were actually sentenced, or what were the conditions, and what was the norm when it came to bail pending sentence. They didn't have time for all of that. They was just trying to get their client out, who beat a couple of charges, who was leaned over on the bench praising God that he wasn't about to go to prison for the rest of his darn life based off of these charges. That's what Diddy was worried about. He was over there on his knees. He told his family, I'm coming home. So he was over there giving God the glory, as he should have. And then his attorneys, they was over there hugging too, according to the sketches. So then they said, oh, wait a minute, we want to get him out, on bail pending sentencing. And then they tried to argue with the excitement and the adrenaline. And of course, they like, we ain't have all the arguments together. Even if the judge told them they had a couple of hours or something to come back, they had to all go come together and do some research and all of that within a short period of time. They ain't have enough time to argue it correctly. And now they want to argue it correctly. That's what they saying. The second point, they say there's exceptional reasons exist because of both the facts underlying this conviction and the conditions of the MDC. The government argues that Combs has failed to show the need to prevent a manifest injustice is required. The government claims the defense has already argued exceptional circumstances based on a comparison of this case to other Mann Act convictions, but that was a hurried application the day of the verdict based on a very quick review over the course of the day of other Mann Act cases. That quick review yielded 4 cases, which counsel distinguished at the hearing. After distinguishing just these 4 cases, counsel argued that they provided a strong argument for a reasonable sentence in this case, and that counsel would try to get Combs sentenced as soon as possible. Now, with the benefit of further research, counsel has reviewed scores of cases from across the country and submit this renewed motion for bail showing that exceptional circumstances exist to warrant release. So what all that stuff I just said, about them rushing. So they're saying there have been no remotely similar Mann Act convictions, and the cases the government cites are distinguishable. So let me skip over this. Even the few other cases where the defendant of a Mann Act prosecution was the user of prostitution services are completely different from the instant case. The defense's bail application cited Trowbridge, Stiblich, and Tills as example of Johns solely convicted of the Mann Act who all received bond after their conviction. The government argues that those defendants were not as culpable as Combs, that defendant Stiblich only had 1 occasion of transporting a victim across state lines. Defendant Trowbridge only had 2 occasions, and defendant Trills had 6. What the government ignores, however, is that the defendants were members of a group called the Jesters, who brought prostitutes across state lines to have sex for money with the members of the group as a common practice, not just the occasions indicted. Didn't I tell y'all? I was like, oh, they pled. They probably just pled to 1 count. They probably just pled the 2 incidents or something. But if you were able to cooperate, there had to be a bigger operation. I mean, duh. That's how they wanted to get somebody bigger than that person. Moreover, the victims from all 3 defendants were victims of sex trafficking. They could hardly speak English and were undocumented immigrants who were tricked and coerced to work as prostitutes by a defendant in related cases who profited from their forced labor. It cannot possibly be that patronizing sex trafficking undocumented victims is less culpable than the conduct here, where these alleged victims were adult American men who chose to participate in the sexual activity, got paid thousands of dollars, and considered themselves friends of Combs and his girlfriends. Notably, regarding Stevick, the defendant was a member of the Jesters, and yet the government argued that the defendant did not even have sex with the victims. Similarly, Combs did not have sex with the men either. The government brushes over Collins, just brushed on over it like it didn't even exist, where the defendant was released following a mistrial on sex trafficking counts when tried for violating the Mann Act, was convicted and allowed to remain on bond pending sentencing. Collins' conduct was far more egregious as the victim called 911, stating she was being held against her will. This shows that Combs' continued detention pending sentencing, despite his acquittal on the charges that actually involved true violence, unlike the Mann Act counts, is unwarranted and extraordinary, and these are exceptional circumstances warranting his release. The government also cites U.S. v. Bloomer over there in the District of Virginia, or Vermont, in Vermont in 1992, which it claims shows the present circumstances are not exceptional. In Bloomer, however, the defendant's exceptional reasons were solely family circumstances, which the court found was not enough to qualify as exceptional. And so finding, the court in Bloomer held that to qualify as exceptional, the reasons put forward by the defendant need not present an absolute legal novelty. An unusual legal or factual question can be sufficient, as can substantial questions in the presence of one or more remarkable and uncommon factor. That is exactly what we have here. Combs' conviction on these Mann Act counts, as well as the unusual legal application of the facts, are indeed sufficient to qualify as exceptional circumstances. Okay, so that is what they're saying. The case law and how the government try to downplay it. There's like, no, there was a whole enterprise here with sex trafficking, and he just testified against them. So yeah, it was probably more than one count. Like, cut it out. Now we got sub B. The MDC is an exceptional circumstances. If you guys recall, the MDC is known for being raggedy and constitutional violations left, right, up, and down. Apparently, they didn't have adequate staffing. It was shortages. They didn't have adequate medical care. And so it got to a point where a judge actually did a whole opinion and was like, yeah, that place is horrible. I'm not trying to send no people there unless I have to. And so now Diddy is about to address that as well. Thank you, Intran, for the super chat. I don't even know what that means, but nonetheless, thank you for the super chat. Minx the cutie said Diddy has an impressive legal dream team. Whether you like it or not, I applaud his defense. I said in the beginning, it was just going to be very interesting for me to watch, to see a team that has the same resources as the government. We don't see that very often. Okay. Dang, Soup Bone, you kind of rough, ain't you? Minx the cutie said Diddy ain't coming nowhere near Cassie or anybody who testified against him. He would be an idiot. He would definitely be dumb as hell. Okay. I don't think he's going to get, after he's missed his daughter's graduations and proms, and then he got a baby that's like 1 or just turned 2 or something. I can't even remember Baby Love. She just came out of nowhere. One day he just said, poof, this is my baby love. We was like, huh? Who is her mama? So, like, he missing too much. It's too much going out here. You got kids having their little lawsuits. It's just a lot going on. He need to get out here and get his family together, because they out here all over the place. A lot of stuff is happening here. So he not about to be thinking about no Cassie. He definitely ain't thinking about Jane, except to make sure he ain't got to pay no more. That's probably all he thinking about, Jane, how fast he can make her go ahead and have to pay for her own stuff. Just saying. Diddy's attorney said they got more in their arsenal to file if the judge denies bail again. Ooh, what could that be? What do you think that is? Van said when Miami brought Diddy a chain, he was in shock, screaming, "Who loving me like you?" Now, that was all for us. You know, we were all in, being nosy. It's me said that lease should be up by now. Because I think he paid in advance. I don't remember. Shoot. They had more. Diddy should have did a real reality show with his girlfriends, like how they did with the Playboy with Hugh Hefner, how they had the girls next door or whatever they were called. That show, Diddy could have did that. Okay. And it would, because all of this stuff we heard, all this business we know about Diddy really had minimal to do with the charges. We just were all up in like, what? Who is Jane Doe? Oh, that's who it is. That's how you forgot all about the charges because you were all up in this man's business. Zinga said Diddy is trying to get out. He ain't worrying about Cassie right now. Yeah, I'm gonna have to agree with that. So what does that mean that her letter is not signed or notarized? Instatran, did you say that when Cassie filed, was she filed and she did it, her attorney did it on behalf of her? It wasn't notarized neither. Did you come in my chat and say the same thing when, what is his name, Nash, came on and did the e-sign and came through and gave it to the government? Who tells you got to do a declaration that is signed and notarized for you to attach as a letter for somebody? Who tells you that? Nobody. Just say I don't like Diddy and I just come up with all type of stuff so I can come in Pam's chat and irritate the hell out of her. But thank you for the super chat though. My for girl said Diddy is going to be the face of ex-liberation. You think so? He better get out here and help all these people wrongfully convicted. That's what he better do. Thanking God, you better do something to help your neighbor. That's what you need to do. Let me go on here to see if the MDC circumstances are any different under Chavez or Chavez. The government argues that Chavez is no longer persuasive authority for this court because Chavez was published, quote, over 8 months before Combs stepped foot in the MDC. The government, however, ignores the reality at MDC. The cases since Chavez, which counsel cited, that describe the conditions there and paints a misguided picture for the court of the reality of the conditions of the facility. We continue to be grateful to the facility staff for allowing access for counsel to Combs to prepare for trial. Without this critical access, Combs would not have been able to prepare his successful defense. However, that does not change the reality of the conditions at the facility for the past 11 months. And I'm agree. That's what I said. I'm like, what does him thanking them for letting them see their client have to do with conditions? Sound like y'all was reaching there. I thought that was a weak argument from the government. But hey, the government argues that, quote, during the defendant's stay at the MDC, the facility has made enormous strides in increasing and stabilizing their staffing level, improving medical service, and improving physical conditions. Though MDC initiated these efforts in 2024 after the Chavez decision, any increases in spending were reversed this year due to the federal government's aggressive budget cuts. Oh my. For example, since January 2025, there have been cuts to BOP staffing and pay and decreases pending across the agency, exacerbating an already troubled situation. Contrary to the government's contention, living conditions at the MDC remain inhumane and the conditions seem unlikely to improve due to the aggressive governmental budget cuts. MDC routinely serves food that is expired and infested with maggots. Oh, that is disgusting. And they have an article. Oh my God. Let me see if I can click this article. Y'all see that? New photos show maggot-infested food at the MDC Brooklyn jail. Oh, that's gross. February 21st of 2025. So that's why he was there. That is nasty as hell. Like, what? Made me say a bad word on a Sunday. Karen said that's every BOP from what I heard about expired food. That is nasty. Can we all agree this is nasty? This is disgusting. Oh, God. Ugh. And I got all these pop-ups. A recent photo taken inside MDC Brooklyn, the federal jail that houses Luigi Mangione and Sean Diddy Combs, shows what looks to be a maggot-infested meal served to an inmate over the President's Day weekend, evidence that a serious sanitation issue that threatens the health of our clients persists at the notorious. This is some nasty. Oh, that's nasty. Oh, I can't stand when people get mistreated like that. That is just nasty. Diddy should be released. The government needs to move on to the next case. Thanks, Pam, for all your hard work and keeping us informed. Thank you, Yvette, for the super chat. You rock. Okay, let me get off of this. It's about to make me vomit. This is nasty as heck. Okay, wait a minute. Okay. Ugh. Ugh. My nosy self always clicking on something I shouldn't have been clicking on. Ugh, I could have just left that alone. Okay. Where was I at? Contrary to the government's contention, living conditions remain inhumane. Okay, there go the maggots. The maggot-infested food captured in that photo is unfortunately not an uncommon experience. Lockdowns also remain common despite the government's claims. For example, the MDC sent a notice for detainees that they would be on lockdown from February 22nd, 2025 to at least March 3rd, 2025, because multiple inmates became disruptive and utilized weapons during an incident. This was just a few months ago. So basically, they like the government, you're not up on your data because it's still problems over there at the MDC. The government argues that the unchecked violence relied upon in Colucci does not serve as a valid basis for finding of exceptional circumstances because this violence occurred over a year ago. Unfortunately, this shows the government's ignorance with respect to inmate violence at the MDC. On March 6, 2025, the U.S. Attorney's Office for the Eastern District of New York announced criminal charges against 25 defendants in 12 separate cases relating to violence and contraband smuggling at MDC, all of which occurred recently between April 2024 and the present. These include charges against 15 inmates for violent assaults against other inmates from May 2024 to the present. A former correctional officer for attempting to smuggle contraband into the facility on January 21st, 2025. An inmate for orchestrating a contraband smuggling operation between April and June 2024. An inmate for smuggling ceramic scalpels into the facility on December 12, 2024. An inmate for possession of contraband and continuing to commit fraud while detained at MDC, and an MS-13 gang associate for attempting to smuggle a large package of contraband, including 18 cell phones and marijuana, to other MS-13 gang members incarcerated at MDC, including 18 cell phones and marijuana to other MS-13 gang. I read that already. Additionally, upon information and belief, just 2 Fridays ago, an inmate and the floor above Combs was stabbed. Oh my. Well, there's that. Finally, the government argues that Combs' bail motion is devoid of any claims that the defendant himself was impacted in any way by the conditions he alleges. Once again, this shows the government's ignorance with respect to the situation at MDC. And then it's just redacted. So apparently something didn't happen with Combs in there or something. Oh my. And they done redacted that, so that's not public. My. So Summer Jazzy Me said, so you telling me Cassie, who threatened Diddy for a year, about to tell all book and not one thing happened to Cassie when she cheated with the help, nothing happened to him, but now you fear for her life? I mean, it wasn't really a letter that was very lengthy from her lawyer. The lawyer just wrote, Cassie don't want him out printing by, like it wasn't really saying much. I'm just saying. You said Bishop was trying to tell us. He was trying to tell us what he told us. He said he was trying to get out too, pending his sentencing, and the judge told him, hell no, to the no.
You's a clown, that's what you. Why don't you call me a cardboard bishop now? Huh? You tough? Call me a cardboard bishop now.
He's not gonna call you that.
Huh? Look on Facebook Live. Call me a cardboard bishop now. You clown. That's what you are. You clown. That's what you are. Why don't you say what you say on Facebook Live, sucker?
No.
That is Bishop Whitehair, for those that don't know who he is. All right, let me finish reading this. Okay. So then they talk about the dangers, okay? The defendant will submit to any conditions the court deems appropriate to assure his appearance and ensure the safety of the community. The government argues that even if extraordinary circumstances could be demonstrated, Combs fails to establish by clear and convincing evidence that he does not pose a danger to the community or a flight risk. The government is wrong. Combs has shown this court through his behavior in confinement that he does not pose a danger. Moreover, a combination of conditions like monitored security, drug testing, approved visitor list could provide the court with the necessary assurance that absolutely nothing will continue to happen while Combs is pending sentencing. The defendant does not pose a danger to others. First, despite the conditions of confinement at the MDC, Combs has not gotten into any fights. That's commendable. I'm not going to lie to you. As a person that deals with people incarcerated, that is actually commendable. Y'all might not think this is a big thing, but that's a whole nother world. Jail and prison are whole other situations, okay? Them being good, the first thing you say is like, you've been all right in here? You've been all right? You've been keeping to yourself? You ain't had to crack nobody in the eye, did you? Because that's actually commendable. And like here, when they think about resentencing, they definitely look at how you were while you were in prison and how and what you were doing while you were in there. If you got in trouble, they do assess that when it comes to you coming out into society. So I think that how he is in jail should be something that is weighed as well. Because everybody else weighs it. Why you not going to weigh it for Diddy? Because it's getting weighed for everybody else. Because they definitely will try to keep you in there if they feel like you ain't been doing your best, you know. So everybody in prison, it's never too late to do better. There have been no allegations of violence at the MDC with respect to Combs, and for good reason. At trial, the defense admitted violence in connection with decades-old violence and an incident of assault for which Combs was first attacked repeatedly in June of 2024, but Combs has not participated in any violence for the past 11 months, demonstrating to the court that even in the conditions he is currently subject to, where there is unchecked violence surrounding him, he will not commit assault. He is sober, has been committed to bettering himself with therapy as established in the trial record, and is committed to doing everything possible to support himself and his family. Second, the government argues that the trial record is replete with evidence of the defendant's act of violence towards others. The witnesses the government called testified in support of racketeering, conspiracy, and sex trafficking charges, all of which Combs were acquitted. And stunningly, the government is trying to support Combs' detention with its failed evidence that Combs assaulted Giana Bangolian. I was pretty shocked too. I'm like, y'all shouldn't even bring her name up anymore. Who testified that Combs caused her substantial injury in LA at the time when he was 3,000 miles away. And then, of course, they cite to the transcript where she got caught up in the game by Westmoreland. The government troublingly also points to unsworn evidence of non-testifying individuals to try to keep Combs in custody. It had a 2-month trial where it could have, but chose not to, call these witnesses when they would have been subject to cross-examination and their allegations could have been tested. The government should not be able to support its argument with untested accusations, as they did at the pretrial bail hearing. For example, it argued that Combs was violent towards Gina, with whom the defendant was in a relationship at the same time as Miss Ventura. Miss Gina has written a letter in support of Combs' motion for bond, which is attached as Exhibit A. And then they probably got more people, I guess, that maybe was in the redaction with the government, that maybe the government didn't call. If any of this was true, the government would have called this individual. But without credible evidence, the court should not consider this to continue to detain Combs. Finally, the government argues that Combs brutally attacked Jane in June of 2024 in the context of a freak-off. However, the court will recall that on an evening of June 2024, Jane invited Combs to her home. She had a magnum of champagne and tequila waiting. Unprompted by anything Combs said or anything that happened that evening. At one point, Jane smashed Combs' head into the kitchen counter, and he was bending over tying his shoe. She then began throwing glasses and burning candles at him, saying she hated him, calling him a pedophile. She explained this by testifying that Combs was dating another woman who was older than 18 but was younger than Jane. She continued throwing glasses at him and believed she got hot candle wax on him. It was in this context that Combs defended himself, and several hours after that, an entertainment night allegedly occurred. The government tried Combs on this incident of sex trafficking, and he was acquitted by the jury. That was true. That's what I said. I didn't understand why Jane's information was being used, because that was supposed to be tied to the sex trafficking of which he was acquitted. That basically he made her, after all of that violence, he made her engage in a freak-off or a hotel night, of which we know he was acquitted on. It is disingenuous for the government to claim that this extensive history of violence, the vast majority of which occurred over a decade ago, while Combs was addicted to drugs, means he is unable to show he is not a danger to community now. How is it that Combs, who has been in this institution for 11 months, has not been in any fights whatsoever, yet he cannot establish by clear and convincing evidence that he does not pose a danger to the community? Moreover, Combs will submit to any conditions the court views as sufficient. In closing on this point, we ask the court to focus on Combs' time in jail. Violent people are violent in jail as well. That is true. They fight with inmates. They challenge the prison staff. They sometimes align themselves with violent groups so they can be more violent. That Sean Combs has been free of violence of every sort is important to understanding that man, what man he is today. He has shown nothing with respect for the criminal justice systems and everyone in it, from his first minute in jail until now. There is no reason to believe he will be violent or threatening to anyone in any manner. So, now, when it comes to the prisons, though, sometimes people do come into prison, so I'm going to have to give my little caveat. They come into prison and they're not violent at all. They never came in there like that, but in order for them to survive, they kind of become that way. So that's kind of a sticky situation. But the fact that you're able to go in jail, period, and just remain out of trouble, I mean, it should add a little bit of a point somewhere, because they do consider that when they trying to let you out on parole and all of that. How you are in prison is one of the things that are considered. albeit I think they place way too much weight on it, because sometimes people get into prison, they're young, and then they're basically raised in prison and they have to survive. But again, Sean Combs is not a flight risk. This is their last argument. The government cannot seriously argue that Combs is a risk of flight, given his history of flying to New York under circumstances much greater than now to face his impending federal case head on. He is and always has been an active participant in his defense and would not make the decision to flee when he has prevailed against the most serious charges against him. When Combs was facing a life sentence, he did everything one man could do to show his desire to come to court. Now that he is facing much less than that, there is no credible reason to believe he would flee. In addition, as the court is aware, he is an active, supportive, loving father to 7 children, 4 of whom have spent the last almost 11 months without the presence of either parent. Combs is focused on returning to his life with his children and will not run from his responsibilities to his children at this court. For the foregoing reasons, we ask that the court release Combs on whatever conditions this court believes are necessary pending the sentencing on October 3rd, 2025. We thank the court for its consideration. Respectfully, Mark Agnifilo, Tenny Garagos, Alexander Shapiro, Jason Driscoll, Nicole Westmoreland, Xavier Donaldson, Brian Steele, and Anna Estavio. So what y'all think? Do you guys think that this rebuttal here was a great reply to the government's response? What are your thoughts? Well, some of y'all, because some of you guys, I'm purposely going to ignore your comments because I'm just not in the mood today. Okay. Sometimes I'm in the mood to tangle with y'all, but I'm just not in the mood today. If it just don't make any sense, I'm just going to have to act like you're not there. Because otherwise, I'm going to block you. Then I have to go through all of that, paying why you blocking me and all that. So I'm just going to act like you're not there. That's all. Juan said master for Lindell said after today, the judge and Diddy's hair will match in color. It's me said, oh, you're not talking to me. So I'm going to leave that alone. And I'm not talking to the person you talking to at all. Nita B said Gina. Wow, I heard someone say her interview with Tasha K should be. I'm sure they heard it, but I mean, y'all not okay. So her telling her experience when she was with him, she did not deny, and I'll go over the letter again for all the newbies. But she did not deny that they had that type of relationship. She can't deny it. She did an interview. She's saying that past that time, that's not her experience with him, that he's changed. It seems like everybody wants him to be the same exact person he was in every era with other people. People do grow and people do change. Except people in my chat, of course. Everyone has always been the greatest and they've always done everything right. And they've always been on the up and up, except those people over here. They're the only ones that's perfect. But apparently they're like, no, he can't. Oh my God, I can't believe what she said on the interview. Okay. She's saying this is her experience. She is saying now she doesn't believe he is the same person. If y'all listen, Donald Trump don't know what he planned on doing. Apparently, somebody close to the situation told TMZ that he was considering pardoning Diddy. So we talked about that. Then in an interview with, I believe it was Fox the other day, he said, nope, he said some terrible things about me. So it's a no. It's a hell no. Donald Trump can change his mind how he wants to. He goes back and forth. That's what he does. I mean, so you never know what he's going to do at the end. Like today, he not feeling Charlamagne the God, okay? So I'm sure he'll be the donkey of the day tomorrow, okay? Because him and Charlamagne is going at it. Apparently, he don't like whatever Charlamagne said about him. But that's just the office that we have right now, where now how some of these other presidents probably was feeling this way about some people, they just didn't say it out loud because they felt like it had nothing to do with, running the United States of America. But this president is like, I don't like you, and I'm going to tell you I don't like you. That's the president he is. And apparently, a lot of other people that feel like they want to say they don't like people out loud and want to talk about people and all of that, they agree with that. You should be allowed to say that and not be so political about everything. And so that's how he was able to get in the office based on the way he is. Because there's a lot more people like him than people want to admit in this here divided states of America. All right, so let's read this again. All right, so this is what I'm about to do. Okay, you about to get blocked because I'm about tired of you and all your comments. Hold on. Please read the federal definition of transportation engaged in prostitution. They are going to use it. Why am I doing that? I know what the definition is. We went over this. Okay. Because you're just annoying. Some commenters are just like, I see you the first time. I can acknowledge your comment. You saying the same comment 5 times is not going to suddenly make me just believe you. Reread your comment and I addressed it, and you're going to keep saying the same stuff over and over again. Today ain't the day. Okay, this is from Gina. She said, my name is Virginia, and I am writing as the person identified as victim 3 in this case. I have known Sean Combs for many years in both a personal and professional capacity. From that experience, I have seen him primarily as a father, a family man, and a businessman, roles that he has always striven to uphold. I provide this letter to share my observations about his character and to respectfully request that this court permit his release and bond while the case proceeds. I acknowledge and respect that Mr. Combs stands accused and that the court must weigh public safety and the integrity of the legal process. At the same time, I believe it is important for the court to have a full picture of who he is beyond the allegations. Our relationship, like many, was not always perfect. We experienced ups and downs, and mistakes were made, but he was willing to acknowledge his mistakes and make better decisions in the future. Over the years that followed, he made visible efforts to become a better person and to address the harm he had caused. By the time our relationship ended, he embodied an energy of love, patience, and gentleness that was markedly different from his past behavior. To my knowledge, he has not been violent for many years, and he has been committed to being a father first. I'm writing because I do not view Mr. Combs as a danger to me or to the community. This is his first criminal case. Throughout the investigation and proceedings, he has been cooperative, respectful, and compliant. He has substantial ties to his family and community, including children who depend on him for emotional and financial support. Granting him bond would allow him to continue caring for his family and fulfilling his responsibilities while still subject to the court supervision. I want to assure the court that if released, I believe Mr. Combs will adhere to all conditions imposed and will not jeopardize his freedom or the well-being of his family. Allowing him to be at home will also support the healing process for all involved. I respectfully ask that you consider these factors when deciding his eligibility for release. Thank you for your time and your consideration. What I will say too as well with this is I do believe that she should have just stuck to how she felt and what her opinion is, but talking about, what he's done over whatever years that you wasn't around, I think that that's very opinionated and it's very speculative is what it is. And I think that she should have just stuck to that. And I believe I can assure you when he gets out, you can't assure nothing, sweetie. You really can't. You can say, I believe, like you said. You said, I can assure you, and I believe. That's kind of contradictory. Just say, I believe, because it's your opinion. And again, y'all may not like it, and she may have dragged him for filth and talked about a past relationship and how somebody was, which we have all heard, but he may have changed in her eyes. And that is probably why the government did not call her. She has been around. People assume she was in Bali. They said she done went back to wherever she's from. People made all speculations, and the whole time she was right there, in California or wherever she lives at, she never left. She was still posting all over the place. Like she was still posting on her Instagrams, and we were taking them and screenshotting them. So she never left. So it's just the government is going to put on witnesses that it can elicit the information that it needs in order to basically support its case beyond a reasonable doubt. That's what they're going to use. If people are going to go on there and just make reasonable doubt, why are you going to put them on? If she's going to get on there and say, no, I wasn't involved in no type of freak offs. Oh, I never went and did any freak offs with him at all. We don't even know if she participated. And if she did, what if she gets on there and say, no, I initiated everything. He ain't initiate not one. It was something I like. I was doing it, child, 20 years before him. You know, I'm exaggerating because she's young. But I'm just saying. So clearly, whatever information that she was going to give, it wasn't going to be beneficial to them. And as you guys know, it wasn't Sean Combs' burden to prove anything. He can sit there. It's the government's burden. And so even though he was going to put on his own case, that was the intent. After they seen who the government was not going to call, and then they also saw what some of this testimony elicited and the credibility that they challenged everybody's credibility. You almost ain't believe half the witnesses that were on there. And well, me personally, I was like, oh, come on now. But when that happened, they felt like they had no need to try to put on a case. They felt like they hadn't reached their burden. They weren't able to actually prove anything beyond a reasonable doubt. Is the reason why they didn't put on the case. So that's just my opinion, my little critique of her letter. I just think you need to keep it personal. Acknowledge. Yeah, He threw a couple apples at me, and I threw a couple apples back at that ninja. Sure did. He smacked me, I smacked him back. It was a couple of times I punched him in the eye or whatever it was, and keep it a bean. It was volatile, that's what it was. But I mean, later on, we grew up, he changed, whatever, got therapy, because apparently he's been in therapy even before all of this stuff happened. So if he had already been in therapy and all of that, and maybe he's changed, and that's what the whole love era came from, then perhaps he's a different person. I just have a problem with people just, again, trying to hold you all the time to what was, because you guys wouldn't want people to do that to you. But when it comes to this man, everybody, he has to be held to what he did. And ain't been with Cassie since 2018. So we at least know for the last 6-7 years, he haven't put his hands on her. But it's still like, oh, now what he did with Cassie, oh, heck nah. And then with Jane, I just don't think that should count. You shouldn't be going around like it's okay for you to put your hands on anybody because you're smaller. Because that's pretty much what the government was talking about. She's petite, she's 5'2", and he's bigger than her. Okay, keep your petite hands to yourself. If you don't want to get hit back, don't hit nobody. That should just be a universal law for everybody. That means you got unchecked anger too. You need to go to some DV classes. It ain't enough women, I think, that don't go to these classes. They always, well, he's bigger and he's able to like really hurt her. And you knew that before you hit him and bust his head. You knew that too. I'm just saying. Make it fair. Van said, you got to know a man will hit you back. Well, she read Cassie's lawsuit, so she knew, even though he had never hit her, he had the capabilities. But I just wouldn't try anybody, period. I don't care if you big, small, or whatever. I'm not going to hit you unless I'm ready to fight. Like, why am I going to expect that people I hit you and then the person just going to be like, all right, I'm about to walk away. I'm not going to expect that. Keep your hands to your damn self. How about that? We don't teach that anymore. I don't know. Purple said Jane was an obvious setup to give credence for her future lawsuit. Lindell said, did Gina redact any of her letter? You know what? No, I think the redaction might have been somebody else that they put in there. I think the redaction was maybe one of the people the government brought up, that the judge was like, tell me why you redacted this. I need to know. You know what, Dane? Thank you for the super chat. Listen, I'm just respecting the court. That's all. My sister said, Pam said these hands are rated E for everybody. Listen, I'm not hitting nobody expecting that they just gonna walk away. I don't care who you are. Except my kids. That's it. And I don't have to whip none of them. So My friends used to beat the brakes off her BD. He told us about it and needed help. It happens a lot. Like, and men are embarrassed about it. I had a case like that. I'm like, listen, it's women. I don't even want to get into that, but yeah, it happens more often than people think that it does. All right, y'all. It's me said people do this with many celebrities, not just Diddy with a past. People are selective about who they want to keep in their past. Listen, just Lisa said free Diddy. Monique said, how much money did Sean pay her to write this letter? Amani said, I feel like they are keeping him there to keep him from getting his way. I think keeping him will help in the long run delay gratification. Purple Yellow said, Gina is deep in love. Hey, just Lisa. Van said, y'all take some of these court cases personal as if it's getting just for you. Less is more than didn't need witnesses that needed 28 interviews before court. I think a lot of people took this case personally. I think it triggered a lot of people. And Diddy has been in a lot of people's lives. And so a lot of this honestly was deflection. Like people, again, I saw I can't think of her name, the cook, Jordan, or whoever was the cook, the chef. And she was really distraught. Like people were distraught because they were saying their experiences. And she said she was called as she was supposed to come and be a witness. She came to New York and was waiting. And then the government, she was there for about a week or something. And the government was like, we're not going to use you. And I think a lot of it was the way the defense was tearing those people up and were like questioning the credibility of a lot of people. And so they just didn't want more of the same. And so some people, they just were like, you know what, we just gonna leave it what it is. And she was on there like distraught and crying. The thing is, a lot of people did not, whatever they're alleging Diddy did to them, a lot of them kept working with him. They kept staying with him. You know, people got their psychological reasons. They weren't in relationships with them. It was work relationships. They were they didn't come out and tell anybody. I think with her, or was it Bongolian, one of them said Cassie called about being in the complaint. I think it was Bongolian, and she didn't even want to be in the complaint. So nobody really wanted to get involved to tell their stories. And now you got statute of limitation problems. So now that you have statute of limitation problems, you were hoping Cassie was gonna ride all of y'all who had aught against Diddy on his back. And it doesn't work that way. So you're mad at you're mad at the wrong person. You like, some of y'all need to be mad at yourself, because if that's the case, you probably should have went to the police. And I'm saying that as a person that got PPOs out on people. Okay. So I don't think that I'm just out here talking because I haven't been in a situation to having fear. Listen, if I got to run you over with my car because you want to stalk me, I need to make sure the whole world know you were stalking me. That's all I'm saying. So with that being said, because you didn't have whatever, again, psychological reasoning that they come through with why they didn't do it, now everyone wanted to put their situations on Diddy. And then people that don't even know him that may have suffered abuse. When I was doing this, covering this case, it was a lot of people that were coming in the chat talking about their stories, and they hated Diddy and they want him to go to prison. And then they was like, I wish you understood the psychological reason behind it. No, I've heard that. I did a whole paper on that when I was in college. So no, I'm not dumb or, to or not privy to it. But there's also people that have chosen to go. There are also people that have contacted the police. There are people that have gotten PPOs. There are people that have done things as well. So there are people that had that courage to do so back then. The thing is, we have a statute of limitation for a reason. Why? Because the cases get stale. What if Bongolian didn't say, well, this picture I gave you that I kept all these years were not taken on this day. I just took it on some random day. She was specific that she took it on that day. The defense was able to take that picture, get metadata from it, see when it was taken, and then show that it was not that it never happened because Diddy was in a whole nother state. Based on your testimony that happened on the day this picture occurred, it couldn't have happened on this day this picture occurred. Because back then, if she would have pressed charges, he could have went and got video camera. He could have went, got tapes from where he was at in the hotel. He could have went and got a whole bunch of stuff. It's by, honestly, the fact that he was able to get receipts from those hotels at that time was almost a miracle, because people don't keep stuff like that, except that may have been attached to maybe like accounts that he still uses. So the account's so old, so maybe they were able to pull it up. But it's so much evidence he probably would have been able to get back then. And this is why they have statute of limitations, because how it's going to be he said, she said, or she said, with nobody being able to preserve evidence. Before I do lawsuits, when people come to me, if I know it was on at a store, I'm immediately going to send a letter for you to preserve any type of video evidence that you have. Preserve whatever receipts you had that day. Like, you can tell them to preserve it because you plan on filing a lawsuit at some point, and it might not be for 2 years. So at least it's preserved, and you have the right to do that. You don't have the right to do that or have the ability to do that years later, because people tape over these different videos. They'll tell you, oh, we keep it 30 days. Home video cameras do the same thing. So that's what I'm saying. It's like people are mad because I've seen people that say he hasn't paid splits, or, their royalties, or, people have all these different allegations with him, and they want him in prison for their own acts. No, you should have filed a lawsuit back then when the statute of limitation was there. You think Diddy wasn't getting sued by people? If you look up his name on all these different courts, he's been sued before. But it just wasn't a big thing for the world to like pay attention to. We didn't have YouTube and all of that where we were watching and paying attention to this stuff. So there are people that have sued him, and they got the justice, or it's settled, or it wasn't valid, or whatever it was, but they were able to go to court. So anyway, Zinga said he hasn't been with Cassie since 2018, but a lot of people were lying, saying Cassie and Diddy were still seeing each other after she got married, and that's not true. Jakira says she writing letters but didn't come. She didn't have a reason to come. What's she gonna come for? She didn't have a reason to come. She wasn't called. Okay. Thank you, Val. Thank you for the super chat, Minx. You said it was a great legal rebuttal by the defense. What is going to be interesting if the judge considers a total acquittal? No, that would shake the table. Yeah, it would be very, very interesting. Jane C. Okay. I think I already got your super chat. Thank you. Thank you, Val. Thank you. Just Lisa said, well, I just learned that the video was back in 2018. What video are you referring to? Gina? Diddy has been being sued since the 90s. Yes, he has a long list of people suing him. That's why when people are like, we couldn't do it because everybody was afraid of him. But what about the people that did do it? There are people that sued this man. It just wasn't big news. We did every little dispute we weren't talking about. This was big. And plus, we have so many people. They say the YouTubers were kind of taking over the main media. That's why the mainstream media was having like a Armand Wiggins and all of the people that have followings. They were having them come on because YouTube was who people were coming to get their play-by-play instead of looking at the small little snippets on the news. They don't have to do that anymore. We'll talk about the whole day on YouTube. And so now the media have to like link up with us just to keep their ratings at this point. So times have totally changed where we're looking up. It's some people doing streaming full time. And so in order to keep the content, they're going to have people in the courts looking to see what's filed and what the responses are and all of that. This is the day and age that we're in. So it's totally different. There was a police report. They just didn't name Diddy. It was also times with Cassie of which the police came. Remember, her former best friend testified that The police were called and they came and she wouldn't give her ID and wouldn't give her name. Like when that incident occurred, there was and then I guess she got paid. The ex best friend sued Cassie and Diddy. Every time Cassie and Diddy, it looks like they were being sued, Diddy would take care of it. When it was threats of lawsuits, Diddy took care of it when they both were involved in it. Now with this one, with I guess the sex worker, she out on her own now. She got that $30 million, and she testified against him. You said she was, well, we don't know her mental status. I don't know, but she was on Instagram having some type of something was going on. Travis said, how you fear for your life, but you write a book instead of going to the police after you wouldn't with the man. You wouldn't with the man for years. I don't think she really wanted the police involved. She wanted to get the money. I don't think this ended up turning into something more than she wanted it to be. She didn't want to get on the stand. She didn't want to do any of that stuff. She wanted to do exactly what she sought out to do originally. And that's to say, I'm going to write a book. It's going to be a bestseller. It's going to go nationwide. Everybody going to know all about our business and everything that happened. She probably would have left some things out that would have made her look bad. And she wrote the book and then probably sent it to Diddy and was like, yeah, I'm about to. It was almost like a demand letter with a complaint. But you can buy the exclusive rights to it. That's what was said. And Diddy was like, I ain't paying you nothing. And then they kept going back and forth. Diddy was like, I ain't paying you nothing. And then she filed the lawsuit, like literally 4 or 5 days before the statute was going to expire under that Adult Survivors Act. It's me said, right, kid with the car situation wouldn't name Diddy either. They said they did an investigation in the Kid Cudi case. And I guess they still say technically it's open still, but they didn't have enough evidence against him. Allegedly, there were DNA of a woman. So it's me said, she said on the stand, I wanted money. She felt it was, oh yeah, I don't by one bit think that she really wanted to do any criminal type of be a part of a criminal investigation or a criminal case when it came to Sean Combs. I don't believe that. But again, I don't know none of these people. I'm just speculating. You know what? You need you a Gina. Really, the IE network. So somebody said something about 2000. When was this? Let me see when this Tasha K interview was. And then I'm gonna get, because she might have had it in her. She played. It's old because it don't even have her background in it. She redid it a few times, so I don't know when it was original. So it looks like she might have replayed it back 2 months ago, but that's not when it happened, clearly. Because she's like in this, she's like in a studio, like she was doing the radio or something. It wasn't even in her studio. So when y'all Google it, it looks like. Okay, so they said a Facebook post indicates that Gina, look, I'm just looking at Google. The interview with Tasha K, where she discussed her relationship with Diddy, was in 2019. And then Google said it's important to note that Gina later contradicted some of her previous claims about Diddy in her interview with Vibe, published in 2025. Oh, she just did an interview. Oh, man, let's pull this up. Hold on. Let's pull up this Vibe magazine. So she did one July 2nd of 2025. She says ex Diddy never did anything dangerous to her after previous abuse claims. 2 of Diddy's ex-girlfriends, Cassie Ventura and Jane Doe, testified for the prosecution during his sex trafficking trial, with the third alleged victim referred to as Gina ultimately not taking the stand. Gina, though she will not be testifying, is the main character in this trial. Prosecutor Christy Slavic told the court in June, as per ABC News. Confirmed to be Combs' ex, Gina, TMZ recently caught up with her to ask how she felt about the trial and her safety if Combs were to walk free. While she says she has no clue how the case will end, she doesn't fear that her life will be threatened, adding that he never did anything dangerous to me. I'm not scared. Oh, they just took that TMZ video. Y'all remember this video where TMZ just so happened to see her walking outside of Whole Foods? This was before the jury came back. This, however, contradicts a previous claim she leveled at the Bad Boy Record founder in a 2019 interview with Tasha K, where Gina, who also goes by Virginia V, accused the mogul of punching her in the head and stomping on her stomach. He stomped on my stomach really hard, like took the wind out of my breath, she alleged at the time. I couldn't breathe. He kept hitting me. I was pleading to him, can you just stop? I can't breathe. She then says he grabbed her by her hair and was punching the back of her head. When she finally had enough of his ish, she began fighting back. She went on to say that they dated while Diddy was still in a rocky relationship with Cassie and that he would constantly compare the two. He was mentally, emotionally, and physically abusing me. He would always compare me to Cassie and told me that I'm the bad one, she's the good one. She recalled adding that everyone around the producer allowed the alleged abuse to take place. Gina also claimed that Puff offered her $5,000 to have an abortion, but that she refused the money. I turned the money down because I just loved him. I wanted to. I was like trying to prove that, she shared. So this is like a picture of when she did the interview. So this the whole setup. Y'all know Tasha K been doing her interviews in a different format for a little minute. This is more like a radio type setting. Gina's name was mentioned during the trial more than 120 times, with prosecutors arguing she was subject to the same freak-offs, hotel king nights, and physical abuse as Cassie, and Jane adding that Diddy used force and coercion to pressure the three women into unwanted sex. We know that there was violence against Gina, and we know that Gina was in a long-term relationship with Combs, and I think most witnesses have testified was extremely toxic, prosecutor Slavic. So they did like mention her a whole lot, and she's saying, yeah, they had a jacked up relationship, but basically she's saying now it's not the same. So there's that. She said Roger B was the only security that would help her, but then she also gave different testimony as well. Okay. They had pictures of him up there too. And they were saying, I guess when she got beat up, he might have been one of the ones, allegedly, if I recall correctly, that was like bringing food to the hotel and when she was nursing the black eye. So they were making the security a part of the enterprise because they were like allegedly helping to cover it up. She wasn't toxic. They were jealous. That's from the IE network. I don't know. And I think that's what we want to know. Where are all the big celebrities that were at the white parties? I haven't heard of one step up in Diddy's defense, but Kanye. Sure, Gina, didn't you say Diddy stomped on your stomach while pregnant? Yeah. Yep. Anyway, y'all hit the like button. I'm getting up out of here in real life. So thank you so much. And that is the update. I believe that my sister is crazy. I believe that of course the court is going to issue, I don't know if they're going to issue an opinion or if they're going to make it a big old thing again, where they're going to, instead of issue an opinion, they're going to have a whole hearing where people could come in and all of that. I don't know, but we'll see. Thank you so much, Lisa, for the super chat. Lucas said new trial. Diddy is granted a new trial by the judge. Does the Cassie charge for man that get tossed due to the statute of limitation? If he's granted a new trial, it'll just be for the Mann Act. if he's granted a new trial. And I'm sure they're going to wage whatever they can. If it's statute of limitation issues, they're going to say just that. Whatever that they can try to put out there, I'm sure they'll put out there. And then I don't even know. The government may choose not to even bring anything. Like the government may say, you know what? I'm not bringing this again. I don't want to go through this again. This is a whole different administration. Remember, this was brought under the Biden administration, so this wasn't even brought under Trump. So we'll see. But anyway, y'all have a good day. If anything else happens, we'll be back. We'll be back at it. All right, I'm gonna holler at y'all later.